This video is about DXO PHOTOLAB 8, and we are going to go through pretty much all the necessary tools available in order to edit this photo. And the reason why I have used particularly a chart is to not just tell you, but also to show you what exactly happens when each slider or each curve are changed in terms of the contrast and in terms of the color, or any serious another way to say what happens to the luminosity and what happens to the chroma. Chroma means color, luminosity means light. So this one particularly would be able to show you exactly what is going on in terms of your each color, and the dark to white would be able to show you exactly what is happening in terms of your contrast. Also, the gray color will help you to get not just a good exposure, but also a good white balance. Mind you though, the sun is at the back. You can see that the light is coming from behind, so the chart is actually facing the shadow area. So mind you, the moment you turn it around facing the sun, that would be a different story and different color. So we are just going to go on with it anyway. And the second is that how the tutorial is going to work, and then I'm going to move on to the tutorial, I promise you, is that I am going to speak very slowly, not just because I'm not a native English speaker, so I have to make sure that you are understanding me properly. It's also make sure that I'm not exhausting myself, because it takes a lot of energy, and also you can catch up with what is going on. And there are going to be a lot of pause, silent moment. I invite you to move on. I'm not going to cut through it, because in each editing process, silence means that this is a thought process. So you need to think, you need to breathe, you need to blink your eyes in order to give your body time to think properly, in order to make a proper decision to know what do you want from your image. So I'm going to take time, and I'm going to obviously go very nice and slowly. However though, if you want to carry on faster than I'm speaking, you are welcome to use the speed button in the YouTube, which is fantastic tool, in order to make sure that you're not having a snooze fest. Because I understand sometimes this kind of tutorial can be extremely boring and exhausting. So I get you. I know what you mean. I mean, it's not fun sometimes, but if you're having fun, that's fine. And only thing I'm going to advise you is to take a glass of water or a cup of tea or a coffee and sit back and open your DXO PHOTOLAB 7 or 8, depends on what version you have, and move along with the tutorials. Obviously, take a pause and come back to the video at your own time. Let me see how long I've been talking about. I've been talking about 3 minutes, so I apologize for already a 3 minutes long speech. Let's move on to the tutorial. Now, when you click on to PHOTOLAB, obviously it's going to open a default folder, which can be pre-selected in, I think, preference in the general and everything. There you go. That's the database. So you can change the database, obviously, and I should change it. I think it should be not in C folder, because C folder is already full. And you can do your general setup. For the raw and RGB images, I did no correction whatsoever, because I think that I prefer to start from the scratch. However though, it's not a bad idea to at least start from, let's say, I'm going to show you the DXO optical corrections only. What happens is that actually saves you some time in terms of the distortion correction and all the lens softness and etc. So it's not a bad idea. And then of course I shouldn't have closed it. I'm going to open it again. We can go to display, make sure that your background color is different and the soft profile is different. Just for fun, I'm going to, I don't know if I can change it somehow. Background color, maybe I could make it a bit more bright. Grid size, probably a little bit bigger. Why not? Screw it. Always prefer high quality previews, depends on your computer. I recommend it not to check in if you have a slow computer. And then you change the always on, always off, or on mouse over, based on whatever you prefer. Processing data, image name, set tag, color level, and so on. I left it default, obviously. Then you have the metadata. Synchronize metadata with XMP sidecar files, write key hierarchies. I left it all default, by the way. I did not, I'm just a simple editor. This is not a profession, so at this point organizing is not my priority. And when I organize, I really do organize old school way. Like I make a folder based on my year. This is 2024, so I have a folder of 2024. Inside the folder I have subfolder of each month, and each month I have folder based on the event where I've taken the photos, and I rename the photos. So that's very old school. I'm old school. I don't rely on softwares, because relying on software these days are very risky. Doesn't matter is it Adobe or DXO. It's just me. And Deep Prime, it takes a lot of power, so I clicked NVIDIA, but of course you can do auto selection, And cache, also cache folder, I changed the cache folder, however. And you have the enable of OpenCL. Anyway, that's the boring part. Let's move on to the second boring part. So you have the edit, select all, rename image, view. I kept it, you can go through the view and then manually click whatever is necessary. Image, apply a preset. Again, you can either right click on an image or you can go to the image and then select all of it, because if you do right click, it more or less show you exactly the same thing. Optics module is a very important thing. Generally it downloads automatically. It detects the lens and the camera. It detects automatically, depends on your internet connection. Otherwise you have to manually download them, and you have the help. Then in the photo library, of course, you can manually go through your tutorial or folder, and then you can create folder at the very bottom with the plus button. I have not have any project yet, but if you want to open the project, you have them. That's the basic part. Then you have the compare. In a new DXO 8, you have the compare. For example, you click it and you can select the original image, no correction, without geometry or with geometry, and use the current image as a reference, or select a reference image. It will open whatever folder you want to go through, and then select that image as a reference. It's a fantastic way to make sure that all your color and luminosity level are equal, especially when you are batch photo editing. You also have the single view, side-by-side view, different way to do side-by-side view, obviously, but depends on how you prefer. You also can select manually instead of clicking it, but I'm gonna keep it single for now. Full screen, that's the full screen. At the bottom, of course, you can tag them, you can rate them, it doesn't matter whatever star. You can do quick compare, and you can do left and right comparing. And also you can do one-on-one to make sure that you know what is going on. Go back to the full screen, and on the far right you have histogram, metadata, ITPC, all the things that you essentially see in practically every single photo editing software. It's just another way. On the histogram though, you have something called toggle monitor gamut warning. So gamut warning essentially means that which image is too saturated. For instance, because the sun is shining on this red flower, it looks super duper mega saturated. So it's a good way to actually check on your saturation level and make sure that they are not too saturated. And then we are going to customize. So customize is the area where you want to edit your image. Now in customize, the left hand side is very customizable. Of course, you can get rid of the histogram, get rid of the move button and metadata, and then replace with something else. That's your choice. I'm going to keep again everything as it is. And you see that when you move, for instance, your cursor, the number under the histograms are changing. Check it out. Now, this is a good way to know exactly if the correction is perfect. For instance, the maximum white, 255, 255, 255. Check this one out. My hand is here. This is the brightest one. So it's 255. It's basically clipping. There is no information there. It's actually clipping because it's so bright. You cannot reduce exposure on the sun. Sun is the boss. So this is the sun through the glass. So it's impossible to reduce it. It's totally natural and totally okay. So that's 255. So if you divide 255 to half, it's generally, I think, 122 point something, which should be your perfect in the middle exposure, which is the gray area. However, it's a little bit less than that. So in order to fix it, you can turn on the exposure, for instance, and slowly go up. And you see that it's somehow doing well in the middle part. Maybe I could slow it down a little bit. There you go. Let's see. Yeah, just about that. Maybe a little bit down. Now it should be about 122. That's about right. Now, second thing I could do into the color. So they're my very first right off the bat editing. Either drop the white balance dropper either on the gray area if you prefer. You see that it did a change on the color, or you can drop it on this white area if you prefer. They normally should do the same, but problem is that because it's facing the shadow area, the whole card, not the in the sun area, so it might do some differences. So that's not a huge problem. As long as your histogram looks more or less in the middle, that should be fine. You should not have to worry about it. There is a minor changes, not much. However, if I drop it on the white part, it's getting a little bit warmer, which I like, obviously. If I'm dropping it on the gray area though, it looks a lot neutral. But I'm going to keep it to the neutral in my opinion. And then, so I did my minor exposure correction. I did my little bit of a white balance correction. So those are my, chronologic workaround before going through the details. Now let's use our famous compare button. So I think in the compare though, I'm going to do original image no correction without geometry. So after, before, after, before. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to go back to the original image and I'll stop the dropper. It's annoying. Now on the top you have more tools. Now that we went to the customize, you have opened some more stuff. Now you have a new loop tool. Loop tool is essentially it will show the changes in real time, which is fantastic. Finally, especially when it comes to noise reduction and the sharpening. So we're going to use that crop. So we're going to do a little bit of cropping. I'll go to unconstrained, and maybe a little bit on the left, why not, a little bit on the top, probably, and close. I have more tools available on the top, especially the geometric part, which, because I already have the film pack and the DXO, what do you call it, the view thingy, the one that fixes the geometry, viewpoint, that's the one, already downloaded. So it opened some more tool. For instance, here you have the automatic horizon tool, which I think normally you already have it. If I remember correctly, you already have it without the viewpoint. But I'm going to fix the distortion, which normally it's not fixed automatically. You have the other thing which call the perspective. So if I click the perspective, it does an automatic fix. Did you see that? That's beautiful. It's more or less similar to the horizon, but it also make this card, imagine that's a building. So if you're taking a photo from the bottom, you know, your building or whatever monument or statue are not straight, it's kind of backward. So it kind of pull it forward as if like you are facing the building at the cost of losing some information on the left and on the right. So that's the price that you have to pay. So let's show you again, before, after. You see that everything is straight now. So that's a beautiful tool to have, in my opinion. And now if I turn on the horizon, it's already fixed the horizon thanks to perspective. So we don't necessarily need the horizon fixing because everything is done, but I'm going to keep it on anyway. Now I'm going to do crop automatic. It's easy, you know, it saves you a lot of time, you know. Now we're going to do again back and forth. So before, after, before, after. You see that? It's quite a minor, you know, useful changes. I quite like it. I have this feeling that the automatic fixing of the perspective focused on the book and on the card at the cost of making the ball looks kind of on the side. Check this one out. This one, my ball looks straight, the card look on the side, kind of like it. That was the point. But it thought that it's a building, so that made the card straight, but the balls, my global ball, crystal ball, kind of backward. So you know what? Funny thing, I'm going to actually turn it off. I guess I'm going to turn it off, and I'll do my crop at the very end, because I quite like. But at least you get the idea that if you're doing architectural photography, that's a beautiful tool to have. So you also have the retouch. Generally, I'm going to show you a demonstration. What should I do? For instance, this flower. If I fix the flower and take it from somewhere here. Public clone. So that's the second one. You know, you basically copy and paste and select another location to replace with it. It works well. It works well with the sky, with the bird and the beach and the sand. It doesn't work well all the time with everything. So I think that your Photoshop would be a fantastic way to use it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this one off. And move on to another tool. I'm going to turn off retouch. I mean, you see, you have this little image to show you exactly how does it work. But you have something else though. What I'm curious about to see, which is this thing. So if I click it, I can click reset, and it says repair and clone and feathering. Probably I should add some more feathering. And then if I do that quickly, remember to breathe, remember to blink, and remember to take a pause if it's getting too long. And I'm going to, no, but I'm doing kind of a stupid thing. It's going all over the place. So click it, click the button, and here, there you go. So it's kind of look natural in my opinion. Not perfect, obviously, no doubt about it, but I think that Photoshop does a better job. Even Affinity Photo does a better job in my opinion, I guess. I wonder what clone does though. So we're going to try it out and see it for ourselves. So we're going to click clone, and in this case we're going to do exactly the same thing, if I understand correctly. And then I did. Now what? So if I do clone, I just did, it did nothing to me. It almost does the same thing though in my opinion. Well, you see, it's almost okay. It depends on your image. I think it depends totally on your image. So you have the something else, like if you brush it, and you can continue to do other stuff, I think. And then it unlocks more area, or you can brush it off. Or you can, aha! Now we are going somewhere. I apologize to waste your time, but I think that I found the solution. So let's restart. So we selected the whole thing, right? Now it automatically, hang on a second, it automatically going to select an area, of course. However, you just don't want the whole thing exact same shape. You want just a little bit portion of it. So what you can do, you can make the shape of it smaller. It looks like something that I can recognize though, the shape. I apologize for that. It's quite embarrassing. So let's go slowly. And bit more, you have to be precise. And I stop, and let's check it out. So you see, you can tell that there is something happened there. However, you can fine tune it with Photoshop if you want, or Affinity Photo. So I'm going to turn this one off for now. I mean, at least I showed you the whole thing in order to make you understand. Now we're going to go to the FX. I'm going to explain something why. It's to show you something interesting, which is the miniature effect at the top. You can see it. My cursor is there. Hang on a second. So if I turn this one on, and you have this miniature effect right there, and the blur shape, you have the circular soft, you have the circular normal, and the circular sharp there, and you can make the blur more or less as you prefer. Anyway, you have that option available. So that's about the top part in general. You know, you directly have the white balance color picker tool we already did. Now, what happened when you raise the exposure? Pay attention to red, dark to white. The exposure, it makes everything white or brighter. Low exposure, you can make everything dark. You see, the sun is so strong, you cannot make everything completely dark. Some extreme white remains very white. You see that? You still have some information available though. So it's not completely dark. So I'm going to pull it up just a little bit. So that's one thing. Now smart lighting. What happened to the smart lighting when you use the smart lighting? So I'm going to go to this section. Pay attention to the dark to white. So let's turn on the smart lighting. If we go all the way up, it becomes, the white becomes completely, the dark become a little bit white, which means that it's trying to make sure that, you know, more like a HDR effect. But however though, you have the slight, you have the medium, you have the strong, and custom, which is obviously you select your own. If you start spot weighted, and then you can select this tool and put it on to wherever you prefer. He said that no faces detected. Use this tool to define the spot of the interest that correction will give you the priority to. I don't have any face there, so that's that. So it doesn't work, which means, so it's prioritized on the face. So I'm going to do the uniform and slide. Actually, I'm not going to use it as all objective to show you what happens when you change the slider. Pay attention to the something else, which is the color. So color remains natural, it doesn't get too saturated. So when you put the slider, it kind of protect your light, the color, I'm sorry, which is a very good thing to know. Now, smart lighting off, selective tone, you know, highlights, midtones, shadow, and blacks. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to waste your time because you just know, you should know. I'm judging you if you don't know about it. Now, DXO ClearView Plus. Now, this is something, it especially works when you have a, you know, this example in the this DXO Plus explanation is that it tried to get rid of the haze or blurriness. If you have like a smoky area or too much fog or cloudy, and then the mountains are kind of whitish, then it helps a lot to make sure you have more clarity. However, it comes at a cost. I'm going to show you now. Pay attention to everything, white to dark, and every color. Ready? There you go. You see that all of a sudden, not only the dark area got darker and the bright area got brighter, the color got more saturated. Okay, we're going to go and zoom in quite a bit. Before, after. Did you notice that? Before, after. Before, after. I got some noise, obviously. You can see that there's a lot of noise, but that's for another video, another part. But we're going to go to the red. Before, after. Now we're going to put the slider up all the way. You see that it goes really dark, the saturated. Now check this one out, the bright to white shadow. So nothing, and ClearView Plus. So white got whiter, dark got darker. I'm going to don't show again. Okay, right. So that's what ClearView does when you use that tool, is that it's kind of add some sort of contrast to give some more clarity. However, it also not ideal in my opinion if you're doing portrait, because it shows all the faces and body imperfection unless you're doing some gritty look. So I don't recommend it for the portrait. Also, I don't recommend it if you I do recommend it, but pay attention to the color though. So if your color getting too saturated, let me check, hang on a second. You see that there is a color gamut warning in the histogram. I turn on the warning of the too saturation. If I turn it off, there is almost no warning. If I turn this one on though, there's a lot of warning. So warning that my images is too saturated, some blue getting too saturated. So I think I explained enough. So here's one other thing, to contrast. In the contrast, there's few things that I have which is quite nice, and I'm going to turn on auto. It is automatic, so the moment that I turn on auto, of course it does the same thing as ClearView Plus, but slightly global. It's not very fine-tuned. So before and after. So I'm going to go one at a time. Pay attention to a few things. As usual, I'm not going to repeat it much, I think. Dark to white and all the colors. So too much contrast, no contrast. You see that even the color getting muted a little bit. Too much contrast, therefore too much saturated. I'm going to turn on the color gamut, which is the oversaturation warning. I'm going to simplify the term. Oversaturation warning tool. No saturation, oversaturation. Right. Now, micro contrast, which is like the similar to the contrast, but kind of mild and not too aggressive, and it works with the details of the details. For instance, it doesn't work the overall way. It takes the texture and then apply the macro contrast within the textures. I don't know if I have any other tools to show you, but look at the global gritty look. I kind of like it. It's especially fantastic for a black and white. So 100% macro contrast, no micro contrast. So no micro contrast is actually fantastic in my opinion, or less micro contrast in my opinion for portrait. So I got to try it out for the portrait. So if you excuse me, I'm going to select an image from wherever. There. Give me a second. Woman portrait. We're going to select later. So let's select any image, but I'm going to try out, let's say this one. So if I go into the customize and then go to contrast tool, so same, too much contrast, no contrast. You see, no contrast is actually nicer for portrait. Now, same goes for, I'm going to pull the exposure a little bit up. No macro contrast. You see, it looks nice and soft, quite lovely. And too much macro contrast. Do you see what's happening? It has a different look. I don't know if you remember some of the very contrasted black and white. They tend to be something like that. So if I take off the saturation, for instance, it does look something similar. So I'm going to, but my point is that this is what micro contrast does. I'm going to go back. So I recommend for the portrait, for a nice soft look, less or no micro contrast. We're going to go back to our original image. Where is it? Tutorial. Right, so that's that. And then fine contrast, interesting. If I do fine contrast all the way up, it's more or less like micro contrast, but I believe and I think, and I'm about sure about it, it's lighter than micro contrast. For instance, 100% micro contrast is that, where 100% of 100% fine contrast and 100% micro contrast is a bit more aggressive. So fine contrast, so if I get rid of all the micro contrast, it gets softer but not as aggressive as micro contrast. We're going to check a look at the explanation, official explanation. Micro contrast, we have seen it, enhances and softens the very small details, particularly useful for texture images or to compensate for a lack of sharpness. So it's actually good for adding some more sharpness, I guess. It does not explain the the fine contrast though. No, fine contrast. Actually, I do have fine contrast available, especially because I have film pack available. So fine contrast, which is fantastic, enhances or softens the medium-sized detail. So it's good for medium or small size detail. It gives a softer effect than micro contrast when pushed to the right, more suited for portrait. I tend to agree and disagree at the same time, honestly, because micro contrast also works. You just need to make it well dosed, I say. So, and you also have within the contrast, you have the shadow contrast, mid-tone contrast, highlight contrast. What does it mean? Let's check it out. So highlight and shadow. You see that what's happening? More you go to 100, the highlight is getting more uniformed. I'm going to go to the overall image. And more you go to the 100, you are kind of trying to protect your highlight clipping. So it's getting nice and uniform. Pay attention to the histogram while I'm moving as well. So I'm going to go right there. I'm also keeping this mode bright area available. So pay attention to the histogram, pay attention to the bright area and the shades of black to white. 100%. So highlights is getting really sharper. Low, highlights getting more uniformed. I'm going to do faster so that you can see the change quickly. So pay attention to everything you're doing. Same goes to mid-tone. So less, more, less, more. So I guess, I'm saying I guess, but I can clearly see that more is getting more contrasty, less is getting more uniformed. More contrasty, more uniformed. More contrasty, more uniform. So it's a mid-tone contrast. And then shadow contrast. So more into the shadow area, less into the shadow area. So more, less. So 100, dark gets darker. Minus 100, darks get a little bit light. So I like slide, to be honest. That being said, you can do every single thing I just said in the tone curve instead. Hang on a second, I'm going to show you now. You see that? We can do everything, just the use of these kind of things. At the highlight area, mid-tone area, lower mid-tone or to shadow area. Check this one out. And you can even fine-tune it by using a plethora of points. Let's check this one out. Now I can even do more on the mid-tone without touching my shadow or highlight. See, so at the end, slide works, but I find it more useful for micro contrast or the new edition fine contrast. But for the rest, the regular contrast, the regular highlight contrast, as they used to say, or regular mid-tone contrast or shadow contrast, you can use simply curve. It just works pretty much that way. This is what they're doing at the highlight contrast area. So more highlight contrast, less highlight contrast. That's it. It's pretty simple. But I am a big fan of curve because it gives me a plethora of control. You can actually use a Luma line instead of, hang on a second, instead of RGB, because by doing so, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So I'm in RGB now. See, if I go do a famous S curve, so more highlight, middle in the middle, and shadow at the down. So let's see on. I have this nice little contrast now. Check this out. No contrast, S curve. No contrast, S curve. Problem. What is the problem? Look at the color. Moment that I use the S curve, everything gets too saturated. So that's not a good thing, because you need to maintain the Luma color as you want and change it when you like. For that, you need a normal contrast. So normal, same thing as middle and low. Now I have exact same S curve, but nothing gets saturated. It's just doing the same job without changing the color. It's only affecting the dark to bright area. So no contrast, contrast, no contrast, contrast. So that's the tone curve. I think I'm hungry. I'm going to reset. However, you have a lot of preset based on RGB and Luma on what I just showed you. You can use those instead. Negative, I think, is good for film. If you have a scanned film, you can actually use negative in order to process your scanned film. You have the tone picker these days. I'm going to reset everything. So for instance, you can select the whitest area possible. You see that you already selected. Now you want probably the mid-tone, probably this one, and almost the most dark area, and brightest area already selected. So bright, you see, if you select all of it, I'm going to reset all, drop around the white, a little bit less white, a little bit more less white, again, all the way to a little bit more dark. You see that it did add some pointers based on where the luminosity is. Same goes for the color, obviously. It depends on you. So tone picker is fantastic in my opinion, in order to be more precise with your selection and to you want to change just there, so you can actually select the brightest of the brightest area if you want to, or darkest of the darkest. I'm going to reset everything, and then you have at the end vignetting, which is obviously the DXO special based on the optics module. I highly recommend you to use them. Now you have the color. In the color, you have the wide gamut or the classic. Classic keys, you already know about it. Wide gamut allow you to use the variety of more bigger than RGB histogram. It's useful to get some more color out of your image, and I highly recommend you to do that. Otherwise, you can stay in classic legacy. It doesn't change much. Probably you need to add some more brightness and more saturation. That's not a big problem. I don't find it. I'm not going to explain much of a raw white balance. I wonder why they said raw white balance instead of a white balance. I guess it's because that it used directly from the raw instead of a global. So just like their special demosaicing and the noise reduction before the demosaicing, I guess that they kind of apply the white balance correction directly on the raw. Now rendering, obviously you have a plenty of color camera body. You can select your dedicated camera body, which is amazing because you can go to camera body and then even select Fuji. Let me check it out. Fuji film. You see, it already selected the camera body like Fuji, which I find it nice. Or you can have black and white color rendering. And then you can select the DXO faded, white balance, black and white strong, all this preset, which I find a very good choice for having your desired look. And then you have the create profile. So create profile, now I can select this, and hang on a second. And up, everything is where it should be. I think this is a bit too high. Now I can select the camera body, and I can select the Fujifilm. Where is it? And select the intensity of it. And then save and apply. So calibrate color checker classic. So depends on your color checker. I select classic because it's exactly what it's meant to be. And depends on your company and depends on your brand. You can select your desired color checker, and then you can apply and you can save it. And you can also select set white balance. That's a phenomenal tool. That's beautiful. That's, awesome in my opinion. It's just awesome. I'm going to reset it because I don't need to save it, obviously, so it's no point. And DXO Film Pack Time Machine. I highly recommend you to download and try for yourself DXO Film Pack, because if you are a true lover of photography, you need to learn a little bit about the history of photography, and this is where you can just learn about stuff, and it's beautiful. I love it myself. I use it all the time. You can do LUT grading. I'm not into LUT grading, so I'm not going to show you. Split toning, useful for black and white, but also for color. So simple toning and split toning. Split toning essentially highlight becomes one color and shadow becomes different color. You can clearly see the difference. So shadow is a gold and highlights is sepia. I can actually change it to something completely different, and that would give you some beautiful artistic look on your image. I think I'm going to just get out of it. HSL, this is where the color checker shines. Check this one out. You can select, for instance, this yellow, and now I can change the yellow to completely something else. Do you see that? Apply the same logic for everything else. Now I'm going to go back to where it is, and I can use the same color and then change the color saturation more or less, brightness more, less or more, or uniformity, how much I want, nice and well balanced or too much. And on the top part, I apologize, not this one, this one. You see what is going on? So it kinda use from yellow to somewhere magenta. You can see the red. Check this one out. It's not just changing anymore the yellow, is changing the other colors too. Now again, bottom part, you can select the entire hue. Let's say you just don't want to affect the green, but the rest yes. you can do so. So we can apply the same logic for the rest of the image, rest of the color. Color mixer is more or less the HSL, but you can fix your red more. For instance, you can get rid of all the red. You can add more white. See, your red becomes either completely dark or saturated, or more white. Same applies the yellow, same applies to green. You see the change, what is happening? That's exactly what is going to happen with your green. Same goes for blue, completely dark or completely bright, even let's say white. Soft proofing, I'm not into it. You know, I don't print my images. So I'm going to turn it off. In the noise reduction, you know, I always use the latest and the best. So Deep Prime XD2S. At this point, I'm not going to use it because I don't need noise reduction because it's worthless. But if you have the latest version of the DXO PHOTOLAB, always use the Deep Prime XD2S. And then you can use your slider to add more or less noise reduction. Lens softness, this is the time that the loop tool is going to help us. Check this one out. If I turn it on, you see that it gets rid of all the softness of my lens, because my lens is not the best, you know, lens in the world. It's adequate, but you can get more out of your basic lens thanks to DXO. Of course, you have the chromatic aberration, the retouch tool I already showed you, unsharp mask, moire, and red eye. The basic ones I already went through intensively with horizon, crop, distortion, perspective, volume deformation. That's, you need the DXO viewpoint, so I'm not going to go into details. I'll make another video on it. You have reshape. Then in the FX, I'm going to get it off. You can either use an image or you can use a text. Let's say tutorial. And color probably red. I don't know why it's not selecting my red color, but I would hope so. There you go, finally. And then you can scale bigger or smaller. So you get the idea of this one, which is that instant watermarking is a fantastic tool to watermark your image. Or you can use an image instead. You have the miniature effect. Then you have all the tools that is normally not available in the PhotoLab, but now I have all of them available for DX because I have the DXO film pack. So that's going to be another video. That's a whole another video. So I'm not going to get into the details on this particular tools, miniature effects to filters, but guys, I promise you we will not regret it. I'm going to just show you one simple example. What happens? So if I use, let's say, instead of a general presets, I'm going to go to the film pack, and then I'm going to go to film pack black and white films, and I'm going to select, let's say, Kodak T-Max 100. How beautiful is it? I promise you, you will not regret using it. So it applies a lot of filters by default. Then you can control your need. You can, of course, add frame if you want to. You have some beautiful frames I like. You know, they are just, some of them are really nice. And then you can add texture, you can add light leak. How good are they? So yeah, you got the idea. You know, they are beautiful. I'm going to go back. Finally, the local adjustment. So local adjustment, I highly recommend you to see one of my video that I made on DXO PHOTOLAB local adjustment. But from the right of the bat, you have the typical control panel. So remember that I had too much saturation in this flower. So now I can double check if it's still saturated. Actually it's not, which is nice. I'm going to see exactly what is going on, why it's less saturated. I think it's because of the camera body, and I selected Fujifilm. So if I turn it off, so now it's too saturated. So I can go back to that image, that flower, and now make it as big as possible. Make sure that it's covering the whole flower. And if you don't know what is going on, you can select black and white. Now you know what is going on. And I'm going to go back to color overlay, reduce my saturation, where is it? There you go. I'm in the wrong section. We should be somewhere over the rainbow. Or I can, reduce highlight. Let's say we can start with that. I could select the red channel and then reduce the saturation a little bit. Reduce the luminance just a little bit and turn it on my, still kind of quite punchy. So I could reduce the saturation still quite a bit. Reduce the contrast as well, because it doesn't need a contrast. Reduce the micro contrast. And make sure that I'm not using too much of a luma. I'm using the chroma. So to be sure, I can use the black and white. Fix the, make sure that I'm concentrated on one single area. So I want just the red of the red. Perfect. I raise the mid-tone a little bit. Perfect. So now double check. Still quite saturated though, in my opinion. It's still quite a bit saturated. So I guess I have to, unfortunately, go back to the red channel. Let's see what is happening there. So a bit more. And I go a little bit on the left and a little bit on the right. Add the luminance. Or reduce probably the luminance. And probably the black I don't need. Perfect. Now it looks nice and natural. So you can do the same thing with the control line. Gradient is the basic gradient. Hue mask, that's another tool. There you go. So I'm going to delete the whole thing now. And then go to the hue mask. Select the red. And now I select plenty of similar section. In this case, I can use the brush. Make sure the brush is high enough, big enough to delete everything and double check on color overlay. Black and white. And now let's see what is the change. If I reduce the highlight, reduce the saturation, add luminance, probably bit more warmth, less contrast. It might have still too much of a saturation, but much more control and mute. You see, you can either use the hue mask to select particular color, or the control point or control line. Control point, I recommend it highly, or luminosity mask instead. I would rather use the hue mask. Unfortunately, luminosity mask, you need the DXO film pack. Then you still have the auto mask. I'm not a big fan of it. And the regular mask, a regular brush, auto mask and regular brush. They are almost similar, but the auto mask is still a little bit more refined. But unfortunately, they are not on par with some of the AI-based masking from On1 or Luminar. So we're not going to waste too much time on it, but at least that's how local adjustment works. It's a fantastic and very important area of the photography, but I'm more like a global guy. I'm not a local guy. So I travel a lot. I go everywhere. I'm not fixed in one single location. I try my best to use most adequate camera available and try to expose better. And generally, I know what I want, so I don't need to and want to fix it after. But at least you have the idea about the local adjustment. And in the end, if you want to, export it, you can go back to File and Export to Disk. And you can export it as a DNG as well, if you want, and then do further editing in Photoshop or Affinity Photo if it's necessary. So that took a long time. How long I've been recording for? I think I've been recording for 1 hour and 2 minutes. Thank you for listening to me. I need a pause too. But important thing is that you have at least the global basic idea about how this software works. Most importantly, this video, you should take a pause, take a break, and always don't remember to click the question mark, and they do explain you very well. And if you like my video, go down to the description below and then chip in some donation if you want. And I see you in future video. Bye bye.